I still remember how it started, lying in my bed, awake during the wee hours in the morning, staring at my ceiling fan. Then this weird thought came to my mind. What if I could capture some amazing scenes from India and create beautiful paintings from them? I had been an artist for 6 years and this sudden creative idea came to my mind. I was immediately fascinated with the thought of how a trip to this incredible place would reward me. Now you might ask, why India? Back in 2014, I visited Angkor Wat of Cambodia, a temple complex that boasts almost 1,000 temples packed into a site measuring 162 hectares. I was captured by the rustic old walls and the different shapes of the temple structures as I trudged along from one temple to the next. The tuk-tuks, night markets and crazy traffic of the capital Siem Reap made the trip more memorable than comfortable in a third world country, but I was captured by the local flavour rather than caring about the comfort itself. In 2017, I made a trip to Morocco, a country in the northwestern part of Africa, for another painting trip. The narrow alleys of Fez, the country's oldest city, attractive blue houses of Chefchaouen, and the arid yet exotic atmosphere of the Sahara again captured my imagination. Though travelling in these countries came with many inconveniences and dangers, it was the colourful and cultural environment that drew me in. Singapore, the city I'm living in, is a far cry from India. 1. A cosmopolitan modern city inhabited by 5.6 million people. Hailed as one of the 4 Asian tigers, together with Hong Kong, South Korea and Taiwan in the 80s due to their small but highly developed economies, Singapore has seen greater economic progress over the last 10 to 20 years. The dazzling lights coming from the central business district is testimony to its strong economy, with the Marina Bay Sands standing tall and various banks and financial institutions in Raffles Place making up the pulsating and thriving economic centre of this city-state. Having lived in this country almost my entire life, I started experiencing different cultures by travelling in my 20s and realised how different life was in another city or continent. Getting out of my comfort zone has proved to be an eye-opener to me, and I wanted to recreate that feeling again. Then we have India. Congested, old and dangerous, yet rustic, cultural and interesting. From the busy streets of Delhi to the riverbanks of the Ganges, this incredible country never stops to amaze her visitors with its wide array of sights and sounds. As an artist, this was a chance I could not miss. I made arrangements so I could embark on this journey by the end of the year to experience another incredible trip to the unknown. My journey began in New Delhi, the capital. As the plane landed in Delhi, I was greeted by a thick fog that swarmed the whole airport runway. What a start, I thought to myself. Upon reaching the arrival hall, I waited for my driver to pick me up from the airport, and once he arrived, I took the 45-minute journey into the city centre of Delhi, Paharganj, where my hotel was located. As usual, the hotel was located in some back alley that no one would ever dream of walking into, seeing how dangerous it looked. After resting for about an hour and showering, I decided to muster up courage to tour around the city. I went down to the hotel lobby and flagged down a tuk-tuk, signalling to the driver to drive me to the place on the little map that I got from my hotel, Jama Masjid. The dusty roads were filled with motorbikes and cars that honked their way through. Protecting myself from the pollution by wearing a face mask, I scanned the scenes on both sides of my vehicle. Derelict buildings, Indians in ragged clothes scavenging for food, disorganized traffic, and a foggy atmosphere due to pollution. On that tuk-tuk, I realized once again how fortunate I was living in Singapore, and India was by far the poorest country I had been to, seeing the conditions that lay before my eyes. After what seemed like 30 minutes, with the frequent jerking and horning and heavy traffic, the driver stopped suddenly out of nowhere and signaled me to get off. I got off the tuk-tuk and headed towards the direction he pointed. There was a straight path towards the mosque, and while walking on it, I decided to make a small sketch. My foldable chair wasn't with me, so I stood and sketched with pungent urine smell filling my nostrils as unkempt children gathered around me to see what I was doing. It was one of the most uncomfortable 20 minutes, but I was pretty happy I did that sketch. By the time I arrived, the mosque had already closed as it was late afternoon, so I toured around the place and sat at one of the steps overlooking the scene below. There were some shops around the area to get tourists to buy stuff, and the place was still pretty crowded at around 5 to 6 PM. Dusk came and I got up, walking along the streets of Old Delhi in order to taste what they had to offer. Cows and motorbikes roamed the streets, with vendors selling milk, all kinds of street food which I was obviously too scared to try, people getting haircuts, and hordes of locals staring at me as I stood out as being a foreigner. It felt quite exciting and frightening at the same time, and after a while I decided to head back towards home and ate dinner at a nearby restaurant. Spending a day in Delhi was more than enough, and I was happy and excited to head on to my next destination, Jaisalmer. It is a small town to the northwestern part of India in Rajasthan near the Thar Desert, and the town is surrounded by a majestic fort built in the 11th century. Walking up the fort was no easy task, and thankfully the hotel provided me with men who helped with my luggage. After depositing my luggage at the hotel room, I decided to walk around the town. The place consisted of narrow alleys with shops selling clothing and textiles, and the city was in an earthy brown and yellowish color. People were friendly and the place felt much cleaner and safer as compared with Delhi. There was a main square where people and shops gathered, and nearby there was a Jain temple. Already closed at 2 p.m, I decided to make a sketch of its exterior. Admiring its amazing architecture and capturing sunlit alleys using my camera was a real joy while I wandered around till late evening. The next day was a special day for all Indians, as it was the Diwali festival, or Deepavali as some would call it. It is the Hindu festival of lights, and I got up early in the morning to roam the town again. I was greeted by hordes of Indians making their way up to the fort to worship at a Hindu temple. The girls and women were dressed in dazzling colourful costumes on this special occasion, and with the sunlight, I managed to capture many gorgeous scenes. The saris glistened in the bright sun, and the smiles on their faces made them all look amazing. I spent a whole morning capturing shots in this beautiful weather. After having meals at the restaurants around the place and spending another night here, I moved on to my next few destinations, Jodhpur, Udaipur and Jaipur. Jodhpur is known as the Blue City of India. There are a few blue cities in the world, like Santorini of Greece and Chefchaouen of Morocco, and this was the third I visited. After arriving during evening time, I had a good night's rest at a hotel before heading out the next morning. Brahmpuri, one of the neighbourhoods consisting of blue houses, was like a maze that I navigated through after arriving here by tuk-tuk from my hotel. The blue houses were occupied by the Brahmins, who are the highest in India's caste system, while the rest of the houses of other colours were not. I saw some locals hanging out in this neighbourhood while climbing up the hill. Finally, I reached the top where I saw a panoramic view of Brahmpuri and Meranga Fort, and I proceeded to make a sketch here up on a hill in the midst of some stray dogs roaming around me. The next day I visited Meranga Fort, which was built in the 14th century to ward off invaders. Today it is transformed into a fort museum and tourist destination. Its intricate carvings and detailed patterns on the walls captured my attention, and I made a sketch inside one of its courtyards. My stay in Jodhpur ended after I retired to my hotel in the evening. My next destination, Udaipur, is called the City of Lakes. I found it to be cleaner than previous Indian cities, and I made my way to Lake Pichola from my hotel, which was just a stone's throw away, breathing in the fresh air that I found to be pretty scarce in India. I saw some people in the river on this cool morning, and after spending some time here by making a quick sketch, I decided to roam around by foot in some of the narrow alleys of the city. The myriads of colours that I saw on every turn amazed me, from the locals going on in their daily lives to the temples and structures that greeted me as I wandered along. I made a sketch of an interesting looking house in one of the corners as I was captured by its colours and design. Walking around this city by foot is recommended over tuk-tuk, as you will be able to see more things. Witnessing the daily activities of the people here was a real joy and eye-opener, and after having lunch at a restaurant near the lake and more roaming around, I retired to my hotel. Jaipur, the Pink City, greeted me the next day. I had to visit Hawa Mahal, the Palace of Winds, and its intricate front could be seen from across a busy road. Walking further down the road, I came to the city palace, and sensing that I had to make a sketch here in this city, I sat down in front of a stall that was closed to make a sketch here. I loved the pink walls and the details that I could get out of this scene: tuk-tuks, walking humans, trees, wires, and a pink exterior. I roamed around a little to get a feel of Jaipur's busy streets till about late afternoon before hailing a tuk-tuk back to my hotel for a rest. The next morning, I visited Amber Fort, where elephants were seen bringing tourists up the fort. In the afternoon, I did some shopping along the streets and then retired back to my hotel, feeling quite exhausted but satisfied in my journey thus far. But the best was yet to be, the Great Ganges. Varanasi, the city by the Great River, was my next stop, and it was to be another eye-opener. Varanasi, a place where death is celebrated in a city older than history itself. Some refer to it as a city of light, as its mysterious aura greeted me once I arrived here the next morning. According to Hindu legend, it is more than 5,000 years old and is considered the oldest city on earth. Sitting on the banks of the Ganges River, it emanates peace and religious aura that permeates throughout the atmosphere here. As incredible India was, this was to be the most Indian of all India that I had visited thus far. The amazing river and its surroundings gave me great inspirations for my art. Ghats, or steps leading to the river, filled this ancient city. The entire place stretches 4 kilometers long along the Ganges River. The sights and sounds were truly spectacular. In the morning, I made a short walk along the Ghats, exploring this amazing place for the first time. People were seen doing their religious rituals, and holy men or sadhus were seen roaming the place, and I found Varanasi absolutely staggering. The city is an amalgam of culture, religion and art, all mixed in an intricate concoction of activities and epic scenery. In the late afternoon, I took a boat ride along the river, and cruising along the Ganges was an experience well worth. The waters further out did not seem as polluted. Then we came to Manikarnika Ghat, the place where dead bodies are burnt. The Hindus believe in moksha, or the escape of life and rebirth if they were being cremated here, so they would not come back to this world to suffer in their next life. Hence, hordes of Indians bring their dead loved ones here to be cremated. It was an incredible sight. The smell of soot coming from the fires was thick, and after spending 30 minutes here and making a sketch on a boat, we decided to move on to the rest of the journey. The group at the riverbanks became larger as they all awaited the Ganga Arati Puja, a nightly affair in this place. The lights and movements of the participants captured the essence of Varanasi: religious, colourful, mystical and alluring. From their costumes and their chants, the atmosphere of the place was brought to a climax as these fires lit up the night. These nightly rituals aptly summed up what this whole place is about. I began to think about home, some 6,000 kilometers away, where lights filled the night too, but it was a completely different sort of light, one cultural, the other modern. A modern city dweller that was me experiencing culture shock in a crazy mix of religion and art. After another morning of boat cruise on the Ganges, I was nearing the end of my journey here in India. It didn't fail to disappoint. From the madhouse of Old Delhi to the scenes of Varanasi, India was full of surprises at every turn. The materials I have captured and art I have done was brought back to me to modern Singapore, my home country. Feeling both relieved and forlorn at the same time that my trip ended so quickly, I was immediately greeted by the pristine Changi Airport as my plane landed. The familiar travelators, neat carpets and grandiose arrival hall were a world away from what I experienced just a night before in Varanasi. Here I was back to civilization, I thought, putting my passport through the biometric scanner and exiting in no time. There were no crowds, no one haggling me for money, no long waits in crowded hot cabins, and everything was immaculately organized, and I felt comfortable back in a familiar environment. Traveling on a highway in the comfort of a fully air-conditioned cab made me feel safe once again. It was ironic, the most memorable places often give the most thrilling and dangerous vibes. I felt fortunate to have survived once again in a crazy country. The neatly arranged flats, roadside trees and commercial buildings whizzed past me as I made it back home in no time. One, a clean, neat but predictable city. Another, disorganized, cultural but artistic country. This is a tale of two cities, an epic comparison of distorted proportions. Without getting out of my comfort zone, I would not have the experiences and memories I gained. What my travel to India has taught me is not to take anything for granted. A city dweller in search of adventure, I've also found the insecurities and anxieties that many people living in third world countries have to face to be very real. As an artist and traveller, I hope to share my journeys with you, a story from places around the world and how it has impacted my art and perspectives. A Tale of Two Nations is an art presentation that showcases my watercolor painting processes of India and Singapore. The richness of the cities in incredible India has given me rich material to work on in my art. The glitz and glamour of Singapore is contrasted with the derelict conditions found here. Without further ado, let's dive into my first painting process video. Hey everyone, it's KY Tom here. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed my video, please hit the like button and comment down below. Do consider to subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Check out the links on the description below to find out more about my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.